Hey guys, we're going to try this again. I've been trying to go live for the last few minutes here on my phone, and I can't seem to get a good connection signal. So if there's anybody on here and if you can hear me, then let me know that you're on, and we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'm having some connectivity issues, so me that it's trying to connect. All right, awesome. So anyways, we're here and we're going to be talking about episode 3 of season 2. Hey Chris, hey Sheila, hey Jason, hey David. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope everyone enjoyed the episode. This was actually one of my personal favorites. Hey Maddie. It was actually one of my personal favorites because it's a little something different than what we've done in the other episodes. We were documenting a girls' trip that we took actually almost a year ago to the day. I got back in town the day after. A lot of you guys that have been following from season 1 actually saw the live that we did from the Revenant Acres Farm. So I'm going to, here in a few minutes, I'm going to bring one of my best friends, Tiffany White. She went on the trip with me and we documented that. I'm going to bring her on here in a few minutes when she comes online. So anyways, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was a little bit different. We actually got a lot of really dark stuff in that location. Probably other than the Sunset Hill house, that's probably one of the darker locations that we've documented. And all the stories that we had heard about this location, the evidence that we got seemed to really back that up. So hey Maddie, hey Jim, let's see, hey Michael, I'm going to see if Tiffany's on here. I am not seeing her, so we'll wait a few minutes and see if she pops up here. But yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying the season so far. We're halfway through now. Have 2 episodes left, and those are going to be those are 2 doozy of an episode. So let me see if I'm looking to see if Tiffany's on here. I am not seeing her. There's Tiffany. So a lot of you guys may know her. She investigates with End of the Line Paranormal, and I met her through investigating at Brushy Mountain. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring her on so we can get started, because I have been getting a whole lot of questions, messages, and comments from the episode with a lot of questions you guys had. So I'm going to see if I can bring her on here. Let's see. It is not giving me the option. I see her. Let's see here. Sorry about this. I didn't have any, and I'm on my phone too. I didn't have any problems last time. Hey Tiffany, is it giving you an option to come on there? Are you on your phone? Let's see. It just gives me the options to block her, delete her, or pin her comment. Let's see here. Are you on your phone, Tiffany? Okay. Okay, she says she's on her phone. Does it give you any options? Actually, let me try that. Okay. It's just giving me the options to add Chris Sumner or Jason Lawson. They're the only 2 that it's given me the, let's see. So that's the only 2 that it's given me the options to allow onto my broadcast, which is weird because whenever Dr. Sumner was on here, she, okay, let's see here. Okay, when I was trying to get her on there, it was not allowing me to put her on. Okay, let's see. Looks like she's found it here. There we go. I think we. All right, it says it's adding. So if any of you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask, I'm going to be manning the comments over here. Broadcasting this on YouTube a little bit later, and so since they won't see the comments, I'll go back and read them. That way, we can no one will be lost with what's going on. So it says it's adding, Tiffany. In the meantime, we'll let's see who else is on here.
I think we got it.
I see you. Hey. Can you hear me okay? All right. Okay. So, let's see here. Okay. All right, I think we're good. Hey, Dan. Hey, Jason. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our trip to Revenant Acres. We kind of do something a little bit different. When girls trips, usually do some taking out some kind of crazy adventure, some kind of monster or something. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, so I may be a little behind you.
Okay, sorry. All right. So anyways, the interesting thing about Revenant Acres is the fact that there really wasn't much history about this location.
No.
From what I understood, I'd been watching several other paranormal teams who had done that location, and they had, I think it maybe had been open for a couple years was all for the paranormal community. And really the only stories were several possible possessions, as well as maybe some drug activity that took place in the house, but there wasn't anything that talked about any type of tragic activity, or tragic events that took place there.
No, I don't think there was anything that I found that would explain the kind of activity that we got. There definitely wasn't. I didn't find much even from people who had investigated. I only found a few little videos, so there wasn't much, period.
That was me. I know a couple investigators that had gone a couple times. They seemed to really, when you went once, a lot of them seemed to want to go back. And it may have been just the mystery that was surrounding the location itself. But one of the common things that several of them seemed to get was the entity 7 that kept coming up.
Yeah, I could see why they'd want to go back, because I definitely wanted to go back. I mean, even being there and experiencing what we did, once we got home and found even more, it just made it that much more, intriguing, wanting to go back and figure it out. Definitely.
Yeah, what was interesting, while we were there, it didn't really seem like a whole lot of activity. Not at the time. I mean, it was active as far as flashlights go. And then the spirit box session, but as far as just anything, just continually being active, it was pretty quiet that we knew of.
Yeah, I mean, as far as footsteps and bangs and voices, like audible voices and stuff, there wasn't a lot of that. But now the spirit box sessions, the flashlight session, now that was good enough to, want you to come back for sure. The little girl that we were getting, that was good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. There was definitely a little girl and a family that was in there. And I spoke to another guy who had also got the same family names that we got. Because when we went in, they didn't give us any names other than 7.
That's all we had. Nothing.
Yeah.
I don't even think that. Did you tell us about the little girl even?
If she did, I don't know. Right. The only thing that she told me was that when we were in that little small bedroom off of the back, there was that little shadow figure that went running under the stairs that looked like a little hunchback type shadow figure that we thought was probably a little kid.
Yeah, and of course we validated that for sure. We got tons of activity from her.
Yeah, yeah. So what was interesting about this place is the fact that there was no heat, no restroom, and
We like to
no no place to go other than what 10 miles down the road was the closest gas station
Ooh,
for
right.
yeah, for a bathroom. So we had, I know we went, it was about a 7 hour drive for us up there, from down here in Tennessee. And so when we got up there, there was, I mean, I didn't really know what to expect other than just an old farmhouse because I had never really seen a whole tour of the house. And so when we got in there and got set up, we did a quick live. I think we only had maybe 20 or 30 minutes to get our setup before we did the live. And then we actually completed setup and then had to leave to go eat, which, if I'm not mistaken, that was probably 20 miles or more down the road to get food.
Yeah, that was a long, yeah, it was a long ways away. It sits on the side of the road, so you don't feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere, but you were really far away from anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised at how close the road was to it because I was expecting it to
Yeah.
be more so out in the middle of the cornfield.
Yeah, which
But
luckily there wasn't a lot of noise interference from that though. Like I've had at other
no, there
places
was.
where the highway's closed, it wasn't that bad there. So
Yeah, so what we did was we set up and we set up the cameras before we left, and I think we had four cameras going and two recorders while we were gone, and we were gone for about an hour and a half, and I was really surprised by just how much activity we got while we were gone. I mean, if we hadn't had the cameras going and just had the recorders, I would have thought that somebody had come in the house on us.
yeah, I would have too. Yeah. I mean, with all the footsteps and the stuff being moved around and yeah, I would have thought somebody would have come in for sure.
Yeah, because what we did, kind of the lay of the house is they had the windows and the doors all blocked off except for the one kitchen door. And they had those covered, boarded up. And so I had left a recorder in the kitchen area, right in that little area between the kitchen and the living room. And it's so small. It's like when you walk in, you've got the kitchen, and then there's the little room off to the side, and then the living room. And from the living room, you either go upstairs or into this little back bedroom. And then upstairs is the landing, and then the room that they call Seven's room. And so we had a recorder sitting up in Seven's room, and then also a recorder downstairs. And something that that we thought was kind of different. We set a camera on a camera, and I'm really glad we did because we were able to catch that camera moving
Hmm.
while we were gone.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
that
don't
was
know,
neat.
yeah, and I don't know if anyone noticed it, but the cord, the cord downstairs was moving um, while everything was uh, catch sounded like me up on, and it was just, I mean, both of the recorder it was because the one, some of the time it was happening upstairs because it was closer to that recorder, and then there were other times where it was downstairs. But I was able to actually catch both of the pieces of activity on both recorders, even if it was upstairs and downstairs.
Yeah.
You could just, yeah,
Yeah. We had a lot of whatever we caught was caught on everything. It wasn't just didn't seem to be just in, sometimes you get stuff on one recorder, not another, or one camera, not another, but we were able to validate everything on and pinpoint where it was coming from.
Hmm. Yeah, so I was really, when
I
I
keep
listened to it,
losing
because I listened.
you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it kind of sounds like it's bleeding out. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. I don't know if you can see these questions. So we've had a couple people put some questions in here. And Monica asks, so what makes the sound of things moving around? Ghost furniture. Um, the only thing I could find was the camera we were getting on order. I know we got bells ringing. That there was bells and chimes there. So I know we got a bell ring on the landing. Um, but I don't know what was moving the stuff because I couldn't see anything that was actually moved. Did I lose you?
Yeah, sometimes some of that can be residual too. Just shuffling across the floor, maybe residual of people moving things, just kind of going about their day. We've caught a lot of that. That's actually more residual activity than intelligent. And it's just kind of on a loop. You'll get it at the same time every day. Of course, not being able to go back, that would be hard to validate, but that'd kind of be a guess that, I would have.
Yeah. Yeah. And Michael asked if there was any piano notes being played. No, we didn't catch any of that, but we did put equipment up on the piano and had a fair amount of REM pod activity early that morning on
Yeah,
that
it'd be cool
place.
to get
Um,
the piano playing.
I was hoping. When we went, I was looking forward to doing Seven's room. Actually, I'm gonna put that on vibrate there. Sorry about that. Um, I was looking forward to doing more stuff in Seven's room, but we didn't go in there till that next morning.
No, other than going up there a few times here or there, the activity really seemed like it was downstairs,
Yeah.
in that back bedroom. That was where most of the activity we got all night happened.
Mhm.
Maybe it just worked out that that's how we were supposed to do it, but yeah, all the activity seemed to come from downstairs. The stairway felt a little heavy. Like when you were going up it, you felt like something was kind of at the top of the stairs staring at you. Um, but the room itself we didn't feel anything in there, not that night anyway. But you
Mhm.
could tell that, it could produce, some negative activity. So, early on, we kind of decided to kind of stick together and, start downstairs, see where that led. But nothing ever happened, that we heard upstairs. Of course, later on, we got a lot more stuff. So,
Yeah, and what was interesting was I don't think that they realized that it was just us two females that were coming whenever.
no, she didn't act like she was comfortable leaving us. She was like, "It's just you girls." He's like, "It's not always is." Yeah, she was like, "Oh, yeah," and I was like, "Is that part of the tour, or should we really be concerned about it just being us here?" Yeah, yeah,
Exactly, because all of the videos that I had seen of people, and I've really only seen two or three other people who have investigated there, and I never saw any female investigators there. I know she said, she was part of a team, she was the home team, and they had investigated, but everyone we saw for, or I saw in videos were men, and she said that the reports were that it really didn't like women, that it was more aggressive to them, and it was known to leave markings as well as to be very vulgar to women. So she wasn't very comfortable. I didn't think whenever we talked to her. We just really made sure, like we chose our experiments and everything really carefully. I like to do the Estes method, and we just really didn't feel comfortable opening ourselves up to that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if there'd been more people with us, maybe one other person. But, we decided that probably wasn't a good thing to do in that house, especially just being us ladies there. So, sometimes you got to make smart choices against
Yeah,
better
I mean,
judgment.
and to upstairs, been able to have heard each other, but it just didn't feel like that was the best option. I think the only thing that I got even before we did anything upstairs was I think I got a woman's voice and a kid's voice, but other than that, there wasn't really anything beforehand, and so that's why we decided we were going to start downstairs, and I think we determined pretty quick that I mean the child was very active. I think her name was Sarah, and we had really good flashlight activity. And what we had done that wasn't really shown on the video is we had two flashlights set up in there, and we assigned one as a male and one as a female. And they were interacting really intelligently to the questions. I mean, we were able to get age, names, as well as audible EVPs from all of that.
Yeah, and that room too, that's the one they called the vertigo room. And I mean, when you walked in that room, you all of a sudden felt dizzy, weak. I mean, the whole room just affected you. So naturally, we started there first. But yeah, it was definitely intelligent. Didn't we have 2 hours just getting constant activity, which is, usually 45 minutes, an hour tops, and it kind of dies off. And it probably would have kept going, but we decided we needed to go check out some other places.
And it was cold too, so I know we were kind of trying to get to the heater a little bit.
The only thing that saved us is we had the forethought to pack 2 little personal space heaters. If we hadn't packed those, we'd have died. We'd have got hypothermia. And that was just kind of an afterthought. We was like, oh, it won't be that cold. Pack nothing. We even went to Walmart and bought warmer stuff.
We did. We went to Walmart and bought toboggans and gloves and extra layers. I know. Let's see. I've got a question from Michelle. She's asking what location we're talking about. We're talking about Revenant Acres Farmhouse, and it was in the episode that I released earlier this week. So if you get the chance, go back and catch that and catch up on the season. But yeah, so we spent a lot of time back there, and we actually caught this really cool thing that you can kind of see. I didn't put it in the video, and I know I may release that because you can't actually see movement, but I know it was this close. So we had a camera sitting in the floor, and we rolled a ball during that session. It was one of those light up balls. We rolled the ball, and the way the room is actually kind of at a slight angle. And the room that goes under the stairs has one of those door jams at the bottom, or it has like the little, I guess that's what it's called, the door jam at the bottom. And it's actually on the uphill swing. And when we got up to pack up, the ball actually rolls uphill. It moves and rolls backwards. And of course, where we're packing up, my foot is right in front of the camera, just as it's moving. So, yeah, so, but you can't actually see it. I was actually watching it a couple days ago just to decide if I was going to stick it in there or not, because you do see, just before my foot goes down, you see it move. And of course, I'm trying to get your attention and by what's happening, and so then I step back, and you can actually see, because the periscope was sitting there, and you could see the distance from it and that it's uphill. So I may actually put that out a little bit later, just because it is cool and you can see it, you can see it move. What was that?
It rolled pretty far. Yeah, I mean, it didn't just toddle. I mean, it rolled uphill. Yeah, it was pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. But you know, that happens. I mean, all the cool stuff always happens just right out of camera shot or as soon as you turn it off. You still manage to get great stuff, you know.
We
Like I
did.
say, I think
Joe,
some experiences are just meant to be personal. That's what I think. So,
that's right. That's right. We did have quite a few personal experiences on that. Joe says he hopes that they open it back up for investigation. If I'm not mistaken, I know the owner and both the owner and his wife passed away earlier this year, and the family chose to close it down. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if they've actually torn it down yet, but I think they're supposed to actually demolish the location. So I doubt they'll be opening it back up. But Sheila talks about how it was cool whenever I held up 2 fingers and got the correct response. That was cool, and I'm really excited that we were able to catch that on video as well as on the recorder. Um, that's
that's we love it.
probably Yeah, that's probably for me the best spirit box session that I've ever had.
Yeah, it was really right on the money, intelligent. It was responding to our questions, asking us questions, which is rare that it turns around and asks you a question. So yeah, it was good. It was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, because so what we did, so we the and then we did in the living room, uh, and we decided to sleep downstairs because there was so much activity down there, and I was talking about personal experiences. We'll get into the spirit box session here in a minute. But what's interesting about this was, Tiffany and I have taken quite a few girls' trips together, and I'm a pretty light sleeper. I mean, I've always been that way. It doesn't take much to wake me up, and Tiffany is a deep sleeper, and so what was pretty crazy
Always
about
gotta wake
this
me.
was, do what? What was
You
that,
always have to
Cyrus?
wake me up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Tiffany slept in the kitchen, and you slept in front of the cameras because we had the cameras set up on the monitors. So she slept in front of the cameras there. I think you had a heater with you, but
Took it
I
off,
slept in
man.
front of the camera down there.
Yeah, to keep from contaminating the audio because they were so loud. So we'd have to turn them on, sit in front of them, warm up, and then turn them back on. So yeah.
Yeah, because it's pretty crazy how, heaters, air conditioners, that sort of thing. People, if you don't investigate, sometimes you don't realize just how situation people put themselves in when they go to these just to get uncontaminated evidence. And we would sit in front of the cam or the heater for a little while. But when you've got these recorders going, heaters and air conditioners will really drown out that sound. And so we would sit there with our gloves and shoes and stuff, having the heat blow into it, and then go in, turn them off, and go into the other room for a couple hours. But yeah, Tiffany didn't sleep, which was interesting. She couldn't sleep. If you want to tell us a little bit about that, because I know the minute I hit the pillow, I was just completely out. I mean, just out cold, you know.
Yeah, I don't think you moved. um, I just felt like every time I closed my eyes, like right before I drifted off, something would poke me, or it would feel like something's like right in my face. You feel like somebody stared at you. That happened. There was something that happened in the little room, just I guess it would be just right outside the kitchen. I heard a noise in there, so I got up and went in there, and then I just never could get to sleep. Even my cameras went offline, and they make the most annoying sound in the entire world, and it is so loud. I had to get up, fix the camera. She never moved, and I'm like, how did you not hear that? Equipment besides her went off all night long. Like I'd start to close my eyes and I'd hear beep. And so, I mean, it was a miserable night for me. The funny thing about the cameras going offline, I mean, down for a few minutes, but there's no break in the time at all. So that was kind of interesting. I thought that it didn't show a lapse in time, but they were complete. I had to reset all the cameras. They were completely off.
Yeah, because I remember, I think we had slept. It was just about it was close to 3 hours, I believe. I need to go and look back at the time where we tried to sleep at least. And I know the REM pod went off, the flashlights were going off, and the REM pods were just going, or the REM pod was just going crazy is what woke me up. And I think I jumped up and was like, "Oh, did you hear that?" But you were like, "It's been doing that all the whole time you've been sleeping," and I never heard it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I've
And
heard it.
REM pods are loud.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, a
REM
lot
pods
of
are
that stuff
loud,
we
and you
have.
can hear them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm not
yeah.
sure if it
Normally, I don't
was.
hear that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we I didn't hear it, and so we decided though after we had slept that we were gonna go upstairs and investigate there in Seven's room. And I'm really glad we decided to do that because that would have been when we went up there. I looked at the time. We went up at 11 o'clock on that Sunday morning. So that was it's kind of a different time, to investigate, which
Mhm.
it makes me wonder if that kind of played a part in why we got some of the activity that we did.
Yeah, I mean, it could have. I've always had luck getting, just as much activity during the day. Even more, a lot of people say they don't get negative activity except toward like late at night or in the dark or something, but you can get that kind of activity, during the day. It may not be used to, I don't know how the home team investigated. It may not have been used to having people in the middle of the day, coming up there. I could see that being a place people would reserve for, but I think it definitely played a part in how much we got for sure.
Too, I said the window inside, and there wasn't a lot of traffic either to contaminate that. So, um, it it was just interesting the responses and we did a couple other sessions up there that people that I didn't show that I may show at another time. But we did a couple different experiments. We had the spirit box, and I know a lot of you guys are investigators and know what those are. You've seen from previous episodes, but for those of you that aren't, I know there's several that's watching that aren't investigators. This is the spirit box that we were using, and it is a modified AM/FM radio. And I'm just gonna turn that on just a second. You'll hear the static, and you set your sweep rate, and it sweeps through the channels. And you can do it in either AM or FM mode. And the spirits will use the static white noise to communicate with you. So we had that actually hooked up to a speaker, and we had a lot of good luck with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
I'm with
see.
you. It's one of the best spirit box sessions that I've done.
Yeah. Yeah, we I won't go into a lot of detail because like I said, I'll release some of it later, but we did a session just before that. Because this spirit does tend to be more aggressive toward women. I tried something a little bit different. Took a dirty magazine and took it in there, just to kind of do something different and see if it really, what type of activity that would bring about. And one of the names that we actually got during the spirit box session was one of the names of the girls that was in the magazine, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was
And yeah. As soon as we put the magazine away, because I'm careful about what I show on my show, so we were careful how we were videoing it. But we went through, and some of the responses that we were getting, I feel like it was actually seeing what was in the magazine, and
yeah, that was
and so
obvious. And it was telling us what it wanted to see in the magazine. So, yeah.
yeah, like I said, very very vulgar, but I thought kind of an insight in location was in there. Just my opinion on it. But
I lost.
oh, sorry about that. I said for myself, I just my personal opinion. I feel like it's some type of incubus that is in the location, and that was why I did that experiment. But yeah, it was very vocal and very clear about what it wanted to see.
Yeah, no, I agree, with the incubus theory. I mean, it made sense. Everything we felt there makes total sense. The evidence that we got makes total sense. It all the signs point to that for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a couple comments here, and we'll get back to what we were saying. So Joe says, now why is it when I bring adult material to a haunted location, I get called a pervert? Strictly used for investigation purposes, and I'm still called a pervert. Well, double standard, I guess. Um, and then Michael Truelove says, I live in Cleveland and was so excited to hear you're coming to Cleveland for the Tall Betsy at Fort Hill Cemetery investigation. If you want a special guest, let me know. Yes, I will actually talk a little bit about that here in just a little bit. Um, there, let's see. Rhiannon says she and we had overwhelming feelings different times. Either one of you
I lost.
different as to, did you lose me? Okay, Rhiannon says that when she's done investigations together, she gets overwhelming feelings at different times. Did either of us feel anything different that night as to aggressiveness, sad, etc.?
Yeah, but the thing is, we didn't really recognize it until it was, for me, I'm normally kind of a happy-go-lucky person, and I really kind of chalked it up to just being lack of sleep. But I was really irritable. I'm not usually not that irritated, and for no reason. And looking back, we actually had another investigation that night that we had to go do, and we couldn't even get through it through the next night. I mean,
Yeah.
it was all we could do. So I mean, it definitely was draining and definitely affected you in a subtle way, which is actually more concerning than something just overtly, changing your emotions. If it's subtly doing that, it's more likely to get out of control before, you realize what's happening. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. If we would have been
Yeah,
able to
because
go back, we'd have took
we're
more
pretty aware.
precautions. Yeah.
Exactly. And, we're pretty aware of each other's moods because we have investigated a lot together. And that was one of the things we said before we went in, to watch, because both of us are really in tuned and stuff when it comes to the investigations. And so um, we had decided that if anything seemed off, we were going to pull each other out of the situation, just to and step away and kind of step back and try to recenter, just because when you're in a place really far from home and in a location that's really isolated, that's known to have negative activity, you just have to really be smart about what you do and take precautions.
Yeah.
Back to that session upstairs, and actually, before I get into that, yeah, Tiffany brought up a good point. We did have an investigation in a town a few hours away that we were going to do that next night, and it's challenging to do two investigations in a row, but it was a very laid back investigation, and it really was hard to get through the full night.
Mm.
I know I had a very hard time.
Yeah.
And then it was hard
Yeah.
coming
It was.
back that next, yeah. Um, but back to the spirit box session. We obviously got seven, a whole lot, and of course Satan, which I don't believe with. Um, One of the interesting, actually consulted with two different. Okay, did I lose everyone? I kind of. Okay, looks like we're back. I was having connection
Yeah.
issues.
I lost you after
Um,
you said.
I spoke with two demonologists about some of the different stuff that we have on this. And one of the interesting ones, when we were asking and pressing for who was in there, and we kept getting Satan, got the name Lyle that came through. We kept getting this really weird, strange voice that was kind of this undertone voice, and what was interesting about it is it came through as Balor, which was the Hebrew translation for Belial. So I thought that was pretty interesting that we got that um, as the name as we kept
Yeah.
pressing.
Yeah, and that's unusual to get that. You may get demon or Satan, but to get an actual name like that, I don't know the call. I think I can recall one time actually getting a name like that other than this instance. So it's really rare.
Yeah, yeah. So um, one of the theories I know, and didn't really go into it because again, there's not a whole lot of history on the house, history on the location. I mean, it's in Charlottesville, Indiana. There is not hardly any information on that town either. But I know one of the things from one of my theories, like I said, they talked about activity that was taking place in the house. The house is not sitting on its actual build spot. So, and it was moved back because where they built the road. One of the things that's not necessarily always talked about, but if you look deep into the history, is some of the farmers back in the time would make deals they make deals with the devil for crops, because that was how they made their living and how they survived. An interesting, my theory on that is that it could have potentially been some type of ritual that had happened, that the entity that's in the house is very old, and we kind of,
Yeah.
when we were talking to the child, what I thought was interesting was the fact that she gave us the impression that she had died in a fire.
Mhm.
um, we had candles burning, and she definitely didn't like the candles burning and wanted us to blow them out. And then what was really interesting was after we went up and was doing the spirit box session the next day, we got the female child, when we asked how she, Sarah, when we asked how she died, she says on an altar. So I don't know, conform your own theories, but I mean, that's kind of mine, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, uh, people worshiping pagan gods for various things for harvest. That was not uncommon. That's why there's tons of lore and stuff about it. So I mean, it's not a European thing. It happened here, and it just really kind of fit.
Mhm.
Where there's, I mean, it being related to the land. I think it's a good working theory. It being some kind of pagan ritual.
Yeah, that's kind of my thinking on it. It just kind of felt that way for me. And then some of the answers we were getting, um, you know, I know some people, and Joe can kind of speak to this, because he's been studying the whole seven phenomenon. And I know he's online here. But I know for me, I know some folks that have gotten seven there, and at other locations, it's been an entity that will follow them on other investigations. Fortunately, I've not gotten anything seven related. I think I've done about 15 investigations since, and I haven't gotten anything seven related. Have you?
Mm-mm. No, no, and I almost, as far as that house goes, as far as the seven, I actually took that to maybe it was saying that we are seven, more like a legion type
Hmm.
thing, more than, a specific name. That was just
Yeah.
the impression I got from the house itself.
Joe says, was it a child spirit and not something far more pretending to be? Um, like I'm not sure. I'm always skeptical of children. When I get those, a lot of the time they will masquerade as children. I definitely feel like what was in the house was sinister, and for me, Incubus, I feel like it was it demonic? I don't know that I would say that necessarily, but I do think it was definitely aggressive, and or at least pretending to be, and it. I think by saying its name was Satan and such, it was trying to appear to be something larger than what it was. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, one reason we decided to approach the investigation the way once we got there and backed off of some of the experiments we had intended on doing, and chose to, instead of separate, was because of the feeling that we got. I mean, we did get a lot of dark stuff, but it definitely had a sense of, if we were to separate, um, or just, at any time that it could get, violent. And that,
mhm,
that was a real concern. And so, that
mhm.
definitely, I think the house was definitely, had a lot of potential to be violent. Um,
Yeah.
the kid ghost, could be kid, could not. It didn't feel the same. That room that we hid in felt completely separate from the rest of us for whatever reason. There was just a whole different vibe in that one room than there was anywhere else in the house.
Yeah, it really did. See, I felt like we were the kid that was, we got we got the name Paul in both of those locations, in the living room and in the downstairs room. And we got the name Sarah. We got Anna in the living room, and then we got Sarah in the back bedroom, as well as in the upstairs dark room. Um, I feel like what we were talking to downstairs was totally different. I don't know if what was downstairs goes upstairs or not, but I know what we spoke with upstairs does come downstairs. I felt like, because I mean, it said that it watched me sleep. which I thought was kind of interesting that it responded that way.
Yeah, and I think we both even discussed that night. It felt like we were being drawn downstairs for a reason. I
Hmm.
think we even asked the question, are you trying to keep us down here? Should we not go upstairs? And, of course, we got yes answers for both. So that's another reason I feel like the downstairs was so active. It almost felt more protective, especially in that back room, than it did the rest of everywhere else in the house. You felt vulnerable, except that
Hmm.
room. Um, could have been pulling the wool
Yeah.
over our eyes, maybe, but
Well, and that was the thing too. I think the only time we actually separated was when I was upstairs setting the cameras up, but I was on camera the entire time, and we had our walkies going. Um, Joe also says Paul is another name that Seven likes to use. Now that you say that, I think I remember you mentioning that when we were doing the event at Hell's Bar, um, which is interesting. Um, I like I said, I've not got Seven anywhere else other than there, and the cases that there was supposedly two documented possessions there that had happened at this house. I know that I don't know about the possessions necessarily, but I know there were documented cases of injuries that had been got there. So that's why we took the stance we did as far as the violence goes.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, we're all after that holy grail. You got to be safe and smart about it. You know, Sometimes things just aren't worth it.
Yeah, yeah, and to me that was one of those locations. It was interesting, and I've been drawn to it for quite some time. I mean, just the building itself is cool looking, and I like a good mystery, so somewhere that really doesn't have a big story behind it is really appealing to me.
Oh yeah, yeah. It definitely makes you say, "Why? Why is all this happening?" It definitely increases the mystery factor for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, and
It's no
I don't
fun for
know.
somebody
For
to
me,
go.
I what was that?
It's no fun to go when everything's already been found out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I feel like it gives you the opportunity to really flex your creative muscle and do a lot of research.
Yeah, I love to get something in a location, knowing nothing about it, and then to be able to validate that later on after I've left with what evidence I captured. So I really like that. And this house in particular, I actually only knew the base of what Miranda had told me. She was like, "This is a cool house. There's supposedly possession. Let's go." I was like, "Okay." So I pulled up a picture of the house. I didn't do anything else before we went. I didn't do any research until after we left. So I actually went in pretty blind. A little bit better, but there's no fun in that either. So.
Well, there just really wasn't much. I mean, like I said, I watched about three other teams that had gone, and that's actually how I met Joe was when I came back after listening to a the bunch of the evidence. I was talking to a mutual friend, and that's how I found out he had been involved with Seven, and so but for me, I felt like when when I went there, I basically just wanted to kind of see if I could get anything to help um, come up with why there could be this activity in this location.
Yeah.
Much necessarily what Seven is or what it is, but just kind of why it sticks around. And I think for me, I think it was just a really, I think it's something that's really old that was I'm convinced on the maybe the pagan worship, and then either the house was moved back onto a specific spot, or people who went in at a later time kind of woke something up. It's just my theory on it.
Mhm. It definitely had that old kind of ancient feel to it. uh, conjured up, not necessarily by
Yeah.
anybody in the last 100 years, but I mean, it definitely felt like something that was, brought in, which what made it all the more kind of unnerving. When you
Hmm.
bring something like that in, then it's gonna, if it's not getting from the people who originally conjured it up, if it's not getting what, it was originally supposed to get, it's gonna keep trying to find ways to get what it
Hmm.
wants. So,
Yeah, it definitely had that feel to it, and it was just something alluring about it, and you know, so it's unfortunate that that it's not something that we can really look further into. I know there was a couple questions here. Um, Monica asks, "Are you familiar with any other place that has been torn down? Do the inhabitants move or hang out? Do you have a theory on that, Tiffany?"
um, depends. I've been to some locations where um, places have been torn down and it's still really active. And then I've been to places where it was very, very active, and then the building was torn down and you go back and you get nothing. Could have been just the day, and it could have been something, physical that it was attached to. Um, I could theorize a lot on why, but it's probably either they're attached to the land, so tearing the structure down is not going to matter, or they're attached to some physical object in that
Mhm.
building or the building itself. Maybe that lumber was used in another building and it was repurposed for that one, and it come with it. Well, when they tore it down, the spirit went with it. So I think it really depends on the circumstance. And I also feel like spirits are attached to families too. And so
Mhm.
you may tear down something, but that family still owns the land. So it's going to stay there because, it's still attached to the family themselves. So I think it's just a case by case basis, in my opinion, is kind of what I think.
No, I agree with that. So she takes it a step further and says, so would people have lived there with that going on in the past and been comfortable there? From what I understood, I don't know how long there had been nobody living in there, but I know the owner had fixed it, or Beth had said that the owner had fixed it up to be rented at one time, and from what she said, they weren't able to keep renters in there.
Yeah, that's the impression I got. And I mean, the house itself, like anybody had been, would have been able to inhabit that house. I mean, the house literally didn't even have a bathroom. So, nobody really would have been able to live in that. And that's, the impression I got from what she said, that, when there were people years ago, they couldn't keep them there anyway. I don't know if that's correct, but, that's just kind of
That's
the
yeah,
impression.
that's what she said, and unless you talk to the actual owner, it's hard to really know for sure on some of these. And from my understanding, the owner was an elderly man, and I think he would come by the house every now and then, but yeah, no one had lived in there for quite some time. So I know the family inherited it after the owner died in March, and I think the wife died shortly thereafter, like within the same month. I believe she passed away, and so the family didn't want anything to do with the paranormal.
And if you explore the pagan theory a little further, if it was related to something like that, a lot of those pagan gods, they will feed on, like a certain schedule, like every 20 years. They'll be active for, a year or 2 years or 10 years, and then they'll go dormant, till it comes um, pay time. So, I mean, that would explain if people were able to live there, for 20 years and then somebody move in and all of a sudden they have crazy stuff happen. Um, there's really no
Yeah, that's
history.
actually a very good point.
Yeah, not having the back history, it's hard to really know, if
Hmm.
people have problems or if they didn't. I
Hmm.
would think they would, but which,
Yeah.
I would have guessed that, they probably would have.
I know I had heard somebody else talk about they had investigated the barn area. We didn't get to do anything outside because it was so cold and our time was really focused inside. But from what I understand, one of the other teams that had investigated there had got some stuff out near the barn, which again leads me to think, has something more to do with the land.
Yeah, I definitely think it was the land instead of the house. And with the drug activity and stuff like that they talked about, I mean, that could have fueled things, could
Hmm.
have kicked stuff off. Maybe it wasn't like that, and then when it was abandoned, the drug activity moved in and stirred that up.
Hmm.
Negativity begot negativity, so you
Yeah.
know could be another explanation. We did explore the barn a little bit, but really everything seemed to be focused in the house, and it was cold. I wouldn't investigate the barn. It was so
I know we
cold.
went back behind the barn during the live, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I wasn't too interested in doing any experiments out there. Um,
No.
so. But yeah, no, um, that's very interesting theory on all that because the stuff that was inside of it was just kind of random. There was just
Yeah.
yeah,
Very random. I would have liked to
yeah,
know the
there was
backstory, weird random stuff in there. Yeah. And some of it was
yeah
even
the
kind of
random
creepy. I'm
paint
like,
job.
how would you do it there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just the paint job. I think you even asked in the tour about the paint scheme. It was real random and
Yeah.
sporadic, and then just stuff. I know people investigators will bring stuff to these locations to do experiments with, and then they leave them there. But either some people are bringing some really weird stuff in to do experiments with, or there's just some odd random. I don't
Yeah.
know if it came with the house or what. I had one of the cases that I investigated that had it was kind of a hoarding house, and that's one of those negative activities that can cause more negative activity to happen. So the drug activity, hoarding, anything that's negative like that can really seem to spark a more negative, aggressive type spiritual
Oh, yeah.
activity.
People that are, using drugs or people that are hoarders, they have a mental impairment anyway. So it just makes them, and they're emotionally vulnerable as well. And it just makes them a target for that.
Hmm. And
Mhm.
that's why, that's why as an investigator, when going into these type places, speaking for myself, you have to be really prepared and go in. I don't like to go in if I'm stressed. If I have had anything negative going on, you have to really center yourself and watch, because if you go in anything other than, than just normal demeanor, you're opening yourself up to some of this negative activity to affect you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just takes the wrong mindset in the wrong place and, to cause problems. And
Yeah.
that's for anybody, but especially if you're investigating it and you're, seeking that stuff out, it definitely, you got to keep yourself in check for sure.
Yeah, and and that's one of the reasons why too I like to sleep in some of these different locations. I don't know if I would have slept in there if I'd known some of the stuff we were going to get that second day. But I feel like that actually, we're pretty, and I think maybe this is why we got some of the stuff we did, because both Tiffany and I are pretty strong-willed individuals, and you know, I think whenever you you put yourself into a sleep situation, I think you're putting yourself into one of your most vulnerable situations, and I
Yeah.
think that that's kind of why that sort of opened that up.
Also, if they feel that you're sensitive and you can sense them, they'll cloak themselves. And so if you're asleep, you're bringing down, bringing that wall down, and given the opportunity for it to show itself when it otherwise wouldn't, which I think was
Yeah,
really effective in this house for sure.
yeah, I think so. Just yeah, exactly. But it looks like well, let's see. We've got a couple more questions. Let's see. We've got Melinda says, let's see here. She showed up a little bit late. You'll have to go back and watch the replay of this. And Monica is talking about some of the activity that we got in the downstairs area where they were talking about just being teens. And I feel like that was sort of the situation with that family. It was a very young family. I think we got that they were 19, which wouldn't be uncommon.
No, back in those days, it really wouldn't. I mean, that would have
Mhm.
been, the normal age. But yeah, everything we got indicated, that they were young. The couple was young. The kid was very young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse
So,
me.
yeah, let's see. I was just kind of looking back through some of the questions. I think we've pretty much covered everything. And I want to thank, I know we got a few minutes of a late start because I've been having some connectivity issues for some reason at this house. And Um, so, I want to thank Tiffany for coming on and talking a little bit about what we experienced. So, um,
Yeah, it
like I
was
said, we got big.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. We'd definitely be going back if
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So I just want to take a few minutes and talk about a few things that are coming up. I know I've shared a few things on here about an event that's coming up next Thursday. I'm going to be in Cleveland, Tennessee at the Fort Hill Cemetery. I just got to say, this is a Facebook live stream. It is not a event that you can actually attend, because we've got to make sure that when we do these investigations, the more people you have, the less likely you are to get activity. But I'm going to be looking into the origins of a very famous Cleveland Halloween legend, Tall Betsy. And so I know I've got a lot of new Cleveland folks that have come to the page, and I just want to say welcome and thanks for joining, and that we've got some very cool plans for next Thursday night. And so instead of us being here for a behind the screens talking about next week's episode, we're actually going to forego that, have it at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to be telling the history of Tall Betsy and kind of going in and trying to see if we can get some answers as to who the real Tall Betsy is. So I hope you guys will tune into that. We'll have a lot more information as it gets closer, but it's definitely going to be something really cool as we come into the Halloween season here over the next week. So that's coming up. We got 2 more episodes, and everything kind of again takes a little bit of a darker turn for the next 2 episodes. So if you've not, and it's following up from some previous stuff that we've done. So if you've not watched the first season, or if you're just getting in on this one, you need to go back, binge watch the first season, and catch up on the second. So, uh, but I just, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, And thank everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Tiffany. And just stay tuned for more information.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you soon.
Right. Bye.
Bye.